Hey, good morning, Sean. What's up, brother? How's everything? Fantastic, man. Yeah, right on time, man. It is right now. It's Saturday morning, 5:41 a.m. in the morning, and yeah, man, we just got started. I was thinking about something yesterday though after the stream, and I wanted to mention to you that about wrestling. I think because like combat sports and stuff like that. And one of the things I wanted to elaborate on is that one of the things that I like about combat sports, like the competitive nature and the backstory of people and stuff like that. But one of the most important things to me in combat sports is being able people who are ferocious when they're competing, but complete gentlemen when they're not. Like they completely in control of their emotions. This is so incredibly important, I believe, to me and to people in the outside world, is like basically how you conduct yourself and stuff like that. What's that? This is just the road we're walking up now. Facing, this would be, that's due east right over there. So this is going a little bit right now. We're going north, northwest north. Is that how you say it? I don't know. But anyway, so Sean, you are the wrestler, right? The guy who's the wrestler, right? So that's what I remember. So that's what I was just gonna say about what I think what I like about combat sports and stuff like that. I was just looking at this thing like Anthony Rumble Johnson. To me, he was like, I was really broken. He really broke me up when I heard about him passing. But to me, Anthony Rumble Johnson was like the absolute ideal competitor because he was a fantastic competitor, but he was so humble and such a gentleman outside of the ring. And that's basically what I talk about when like sports and competition. Ais Atsi, good morning. How are you? How is everything today? This is a Saturday morning, August 23rd at 5:43 a.m. And the sun has not risen yet, but it's just about coming up. And as I always say at this time, this is the witching hour, the time between darkness and light. This is when the spirits are going back to the other dimensions and stuff like that. So maybe we'll see some spirits or something like that, some ghosts, some paranormal activity, or maybe a vampire. We don't really want to see any vampires though. I wouldn't mind seeing a ghost. Anyway, yeah, so that's what I was thinking about was Anthony Rumble Johnson. And there are other competitors too, who just, completely, highly competitive inside the sport, but outside of the sport, or even just outside of, just after the event ends, while they're still there, they're totally in control of their emotions. And I think that is a very admirable trait to have. You would certainly find that in the Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius and stuff like that. The Stoics from the ancient Greeks and Romans and stuff like that. It's just been a very good trait to have throughout human history. There are a lot of people out there. They call that EQ. Hey, Nico Saputra. Sawadika up, Sabadi Lupaya, or how you doing this morning? All right, Saputra, that's very funny. I like it. Excellent. I hope you're having a wonderful morning. It's August 23rd, Saturday morning here, 5:45 a.m. And as I said before, it's between darkness and light right now. And all the spirits and ghosts are heading back to their other dimensions. But anyway, So that's like something I was thinking about. I was very fortunate this morning to be able to walk for well, a variety of reasons, but more specifically, it was downpouring about an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago. It was raining so hard, there's no way I would have been able to come out on a walk. But it stopped and it's nice and cool out, and we get the walk on, get the exercise on, do everything we got to do, stay true to our grind to achieve the goals that we want to achieve, and that's what it's all about. Consistency, consistency, correctness, consistency. Also, I don't know, I try to make up some sort of like a word scheme with consistency, correctness, consciousness. I don't know. You can try and we'll figure one out eventually. But yes, so the temperature actually, surprisingly, this is actually kind of surprising. This morning, the temperature was actually a little bit warmer than it was yesterday, even though yesterday we had not had any rain for a few days. And it just rained about an hour and a half ago. And normally, I would think after it rains, it cools off. But it just feels a little bit warmer now than it did yesterday or the day before when we were out. So, but it's still good. Actually, the warmer weather is probably good. And humidity to get that perspiration going, burn those calories, and get this fitness going. Can't be stopped. The only one can't be stopped. Just can only stop us is only we can stop ourselves. Well, that's not really true, but it's a nice thought. Yeah, so I told you. I always say I walk on. I try to get the traffic coming towards me. Because, well, especially at this time in the morning, people like to party late, and they do get in the car after they had a few or something like that. So I just don't, I want to see it coming, and if I have a chance, I can sort of jump, get my plan. There we go. There's some spirits right there. Look at that light. You see that? They're heading out. I know, you see, in the old days, before we had so much physics and stuff like that, you see that by the light? That's a ghost. Right there. It's heading back to the next dimension. I can see it moving. Look at that. That's amazing. I told you the period between darkness and light is when the spirits are out. And we just saw one heading back to another dimension. Amazing. So close. Fantastic. So lucky to be able to see that this morning. And yeah, so I just did some work while it was raining. I uploaded some videos to the channel if you want to check them out. I know Sean always checks them out. He loves puppies. I mean, who doesn't love puppies? And these puppies are 3 weeks old. Unfortunately, their mother, how we got them was that their mother was sort of like a stray dog, and she had a litter of 5, but somebody poisoned her and she passed away. And there was this 5-year-old kid who was in the area with his parents, and obviously he's the kid wants to take care of the puppies. Adults want to take care of the puppies, whatever. And his name is Otto, and like an automobile, and he was friendly with his family's friendly with my wife, so he came over to the house with my wife's mother, and with a box and 2 puppies, at that time were about a week and a half old. And he said that he had to give them away because these puppies were drinking all his milk, because his parents feed him milk to give him, make him grow strong also. But that's what this 5-year-old boy said. He said the reason he had to give these puppies to us is because even though he loved them, they were drinking all his milk. And then that's how we got the puppies, both of them. And they're sisters, and we named them Mia and Maya. And they are Thai dogs, Thai breed. And we are feeding them really well, probably overfeeding them really well. And let's see how big and strong they get. Around 8 weeks, I'll start training. So now it's 3 weeks, so in 5 weeks. And in week 6 or 7 is when we get them their first vaccines. So that's an amazing journey. I think these puppies will grow when they're full grown. They'll be around 40 pounds, something like that. 20 kilo. That's my guess. But right now they're putting on each day. So when they first arrived, they weighed 0.7 and 0.65 kilo. And my wife weighed them yesterday. They weighed 1.7 kilo each. So they both one put on a straight kilo, and the other one put on a kilo 0.05. So and that's in 9 days. They're growing, that's like a tremendous, more than double size in 9 days. No, is it more than double size? Yeah, that's more than double size in 9 days. I don't know if you guys remember, but I remember when I was really young and I was growing. They call it growing pains, right? You could feel your bones. Like I could remember, growing, and my bones were growing, and it was painful. Like you could feel that, I'm sure most of you in the chat felt that too. I asked my wife if she had growing pains, like when she was a kid or stuff like that. But she's only like 5 feet tall, so she said she didn't have any growing pains. I said, well, how's that possible? Your bones are made of calcium, they're hard, stuff like that. They gotta grow. And she said, no, she didn't feel anything. I remember laying in bed to the point where I was I was a kid, I was almost beside myself. And look at this. Here we go. This is a shot from the other side of the street, and we always want to pay our respects to the Lord Buddha and the Buddhist religion and stuff like that. But this is really beautiful. The interior, Wat, with the gate outside, very ornate, and you see in front of the Wat, you can see the serpents or dragons, or I think they call them Naga, Naga, for protecting I don't know. The simile that came to my mind was check your attitude at the door. But I guess there's protecting this. It's a protected space. Basically, that's what that says. That's the association I make with the dragons or serpents or whatever they are. I think they're dragons guarding the door, which is pretty cool and multicultural, and it goes across all civilizations. Like you go from the most western point of Europe to the easternmost point of Asia. You'll see those kind of similarities. which is an amazing thing. Like, I don't know if we should talk about this the simulation, but how can you not talk about the simulation and the singularity and stuff like that? Because is like that's a really big event, and like it was being downplayed a lot, like when people were first talking about it. But like obviously, there's shared experiences through culture and time and stuff like that. So you kind of wonder, like, how did that happen and stuff like that. I had a conversation with a fella yesterday, a fella from England. He, he had just been starting to, he's a little bit, I think he's like 12 years older than I am. And he's just been like listening to things about the simulation, the universe being a simulation and stuff like that, right? And we really like crack jokes between each other and stuff like that, right? And he's like asking me like, well, if it's a simulation, right? Like who's controlling things and stuff like that. So I was like, well, I said, well, you're in your bodily form, and there's a super user that is, in charge of your reality, right? And he's like, well, oh yeah, well that kind of makes sense and stuff like that. And that's just something that like I've seen on like Diary of a CEO and Joe Rogan and Weinstein and other podcasts and stuff like that, talking about that kind of thing. So like this fellow that I've been talking to, he's kind of like, he's, I don't know, I would say probably he's made his own luck in his life and stuff like that, but, not the most fortunate fella, in the world, and not the most successful, but a super wonderful person from a distance. And so I was thinking about the same thing, like oh man, I'm not like super successful and stuff like that. And then it came to me what I have to do, and this is the only thing that I have to do. I've got to email or send a text message to my super user, the one who's like in the next dimension, who's in charge of my reality in this universe. And I got to tell this guy, listen, man, you got to start playing a better game, because all these other players in this game, they've got super users who are doing a much better job than you are, because I'm not feeling it. I think you need to level up or something like that, or get some lessons, because whoever my super user is, he's not at the top of his game, So that was my thoughts on the simulation. But yeah, it is kind of strange. Like like you see all the similarities and of things in life. And actually, what brought up that topic about the simulation was that this fella, his name is Tom, sent me a video of the similarities between Abraham Lincoln and JFK. So I don't know how to say. I can't send the link over the chat or anything like that. But if you could look it up, you could look it up on YouTube, and like the JFK Lincoln coincidences, and it is freaky. I'm telling you, when I say freaky, it is absolutely wild, and like it's like it really. It'll make you really wonder, I mean, how is that even possible? The similarities between John F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. Check it out. I strongly suggest check it out. If Scott 74 was here, I know he'd check it out. If not, he hasn't seen it already. Or Balding, Mr. Balding, or Scott, Sean. All you guys, Nancy, check it out. you're gonna see some amazing things. If you haven't seen it yet, you got to see it. Just got to see it. It's a short, it's a short video that I saw, but just look it up. The similarities between, or coincidences between JFK and Abraham Lincoln. Blow your mind. It literally blew their minds. That's a bad joke. But yeah, anyway. So that prompted me to do my own little video this morning, one of my videos. And I did a short, which I have to double check the editing. But my short is the similarities of Donald J. Trump and Grover Cleveland, right? So I did a short on that. It's like 51 seconds, and there's some pretty interesting coincidences or similarities between those two presidents. Not nearly as much as JFK and Lincoln, but pretty interesting in itself. I was surprised. So I'm not going to spoil it and tell you what it is. If you want to know, go to my channel, take a look, hit up the short, check it out. And if you can, I'd love it if you left a comment and a thumbs up, or a critique. Tell me it sucks, like, oh man, you got to fix the editing on this and that and whatever, because I'd love to hear about that too, because, how am I going to know if I did something that, wasn't really good if you guys don't tell me? So I hope you check it out. I put some other ones up, try to be a little controversial or something like that, But controversy is, I guess, one of the fuels of humankind. Maybe it's the fuel of the imagination. I don't know. But definitely something that humans are interested in. I don't know how many of you out there believe that there were previous ancient advanced civilizations before humans, before us. This last 6,000 years, like the Silurian, hypothesis or something like that. Any of you believe in that? Well, I know some of the people that come here regularly definitely believe. Arun Sawa Peace, Sabari Lupao. All right. So that's something definitely that definitely could be true. If you look at the timeline of, even if you look at the timeline of just Homo sapiens, like the timeline doesn't make any. It doesn't. I mean, like it doesn't seem to make sense that if we've been around for at least 300,000 years, and some think that we've been around here longer than 300,000 years, maybe 500,000 years, maybe longer than that, and they say, wow, why, if Homo sapiens in their present biological and mental form, why would they have waited until the last 6,000 years to create an advanced civilization at a breakneck speed? Because it goes really quick. It starts off, and then it's just getting faster and faster. So it's possible, right? That if our civilizations have been around for 6,000 years, that in the last 500,000 years, there definitely could have been other advanced civilizations that wiped themselves out, or other advanced beings, and stuff like that, stuff we don't know about, Anyway, that's just a little food for thought. I don't know. I mean, my dad was in the hospital at one point, and he was all like, my father was a semi-famous writer. You could look him up, L.J. Davis, initial L, initial J, Davis, Davis, and you can look up his Wikipedia if you want. You can see that he was a fairly prominent writer in his time. Anyway, towards the end of his life, he was in the hospital and stuff like that, and he had just come out of some medical procedure, and we were sitting talking. He was laying in the bed, and I was sitting next to him, and he was telling me. I remember the quote. He said he felt like he was doing cartwheels in the chandeliers. And I was like, wow, man. If nobody's used that line, if I'm ever gonna like write something, and I have been a writer in my past. I did some journalism. I used to have a weekly column years ago, and I write all the time. But I haven't published any books or anything like that. A lot of reasons I don't publish this stuff or try to publish things is because I'm not sure that it'd be a good idea for me to publish some of the things, that like experiencing people that I knew and stuff like that, or had encountered and stuff like that. There's people are still alive, and stuff, and like I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, that's for sure. So, and I don't want to talk about anybody's dirty laundry or even just anything that they might not want, to be talked about. So I don't write fantasy, just more like journalistic type of things and stuff like that. So anyway, so my father's laying there in the bed, and he said he's doing cartwheels in the chandeliers, and then he goes on, and this is the year. I think it was like 1997. I had flown back from Thailand because, we're afraid we're going to lose him. And I was, visiting him every day. And, he was telling me stories. And so this is like 1997. And he told me, and he was an avid researcher and stuff like that, in 97, he said there was an advanced civilization before humans, but he said something that I just couldn't believe. He said that there were giant turtles and tortoises, and they were flying around. He said they were flying around the earth on flying saucers or some sort of floating discs. But he did. He was on medication and stuff like that, so it's definitely not something like I don't think that he would have said if he wasn't in the state that he was in, but it was something that he had done, obviously a little bit of research. Arun Sawat, I'd done a little bit of research and stuff like that, and that was before. I don't know if in '97 Greg published anything. He probably did. My father was an avid reader as well. So, look him up. L.J. Davis, the author. He wrote a few books, a lot of articles, investigative journalism. He investigated the Clinton Whitewater, the Clinton Whitewater scandal, which ended up nearly ending his career because, according to my father, and I don't see any reason why he would have lied to me. And he said this to other people too, but they didn't believe him. He said that when he went to Little Rock, Arkansas, to do investigative journalism, that he pulled a file, he had pulled research files and stuff like that, and he had them. Actually, this was even before '97. I'm pretty sure, right? So he had the files, and he said that 3 men had come and hit him in the head with a blackjack. Something like that's like an object to knock people out. So they hit him on the head, and when he woke up, that some of his files were missing, and he took that he didn't shut up about it. Didn't take it as a message like, oh, if you don't stop reporting, we're going to eliminate you or something like that. Because he told the story, and when he told the story, the White House, the Clintons, came back with a counter story, and they're saying that my father had sat at the hotel lobby bar and had 5 double martinis and had slipped and fell on his way back to his hotel room, and that's how he lost the files. That doesn't make sense. My father did drink, but at that time, 5 double martinis wouldn't have knocked him out. Certainly, he'd be intoxicated, right? But I don't even know that he had 5 double. That's just what the White House said, because he was investigating Bill and Hillary Clinton, So if you want to check it out, I'll say it again: L.J. Davis, initial L, initial J, Davis, Davis. You can look him up on Wikipedia, and he was a very interesting guy. So that's like, up there. That's talking about my father a little bit, thinking about fathers and stuff. But that's all I have to say about him for right now. I have other stories, but I'm not going to go into it. We'll go into it later, another day. But I will tell you a story. This is a crazy story I had here in Thailand, and this happened over 20 years ago. So, I was living in a resort town called Pattaya, right? That's like about an hour's drive, an hour and a half drive south of Bangkok, right? It's a party town. Back then it was like a super party town. I don't know. Maybe it's still a party town. I don't know. But there's like an expat community, expatriate community there. And, I knew we had like a little group. It's not little, actually. It was kind of a big group of expats, from all over, from India, Germany, England, Japan. I don't know, whatever. There's like a lot of Germans, and Italy. Anyway, I had this one associate who I guess you could call kind of a friend, and his name was Dr. Schubert. And Dr. Schubert claimed to be the great-grandson of the composer Franz Schubert from Mönchengladbach, Germany. But Dr. Schubert had an office in the hospital, one of the hospitals here. But as it turns out, Dr. Schubert was not a doctor. He was a con man. And a very funny one at that, in my opinion. Some people didn't find it funny. Obviously, if you were one of his victims or something like that, it wasn't funny at all. But from my perspective, I didn't have any of those kinds of dealings with him. He was always funny, and I guess that's what good con men have to do, is they have to maintain like this, charming persona or personality. Anyway, so what Dr. Ralph was doing was, at that time, he would fly to China or contact his contact in China, and he would get HGH, human growth hormone, and he would get that, and he would get it sent to him in Thailand. I think that's what, I don't know the true intricacies of his dealings and stuff like that, but I'm going to assume that he had it sent to him here in Thailand, in Pattaya. Anyway, he would do business deals with anybody if you came up with money and stuff like that, right? So I, sort of like heard of this, thing that was getting HGH and sending it back to Europe and stuff like that. But one day, Dr. Ralph he drives up to my house in a minivan. And in the minivan was his wife and his 2 children. His 2 children were like 7 and 9, those ages, right? And Dr. Ralph is he's larger than life character, I remember he pulls up in a minivan in front of my wife's and my house, and he's blasting Enkelberg. What's that guy? I don't know who he is. He's the singer, Hunkelberg, or whoever. Is like apparently he's was a very famous singer. But anyway, whatever his name was, he was one of the what you call a crooner, sort of like Sinatra or Bobby Caldwell or that kind of stuff. Anyway, I remember him blasting out, and he goes in this heavy German accent, because he said, "Gabi, come with me. I want you to meet one of my friends." Right? And sometimes Dr. Ralph, he had a lot of money, and he's a good person to know sometimes. Anyway, so I was like, oh, okay. So you get in the van with Engelberg, blasting, and he says, "Oh, I love this guy. I always play him." And I was like, and Dr. Ralph, he's saying this in a very loud German accent, and also driving like 3 times the speed limit down residential lanes. Mind you, he has his wife and his 2 kids in the car too, and he's just, it does no care in the world, oblivious to everything around him and stuff like that. And I'm like holding onto the seat, like, oh my God, man. I'm like, Dr. Ralph, please slow down. And he don't, of course, he don't hear me or anything like that, whatever. Anyway, so we just keep driving, and then we go to this other neighborhood. It's like one of the wealthier neighborhoods. It was in this place called Potomna, the hills, like it's up on the hills, right? And a lot of wealthy people have nice villas up there, so we pull up in front of this one, and it's got this big gate, and it's electric, so it's big cast iron gate, and it's electric, so he pulls up in front of it, and the gate, goes opening, right? And Dr. Ralph says, "Gabi, come with me. We'll leave the car here, and so my kids and my wife can have the air condition running in the minivan." And that seemed perfectly normal to me, but when I tell you the rest of the story, it'll make sense. So we walk down this path, right? And this place was absolutely beautiful, well manicured, tropical garden and everything like that. And then there was a pool, and around the pool were a bunch of, I don't say a bunch, maybe like 3 or 4 young men. All of them you could see were probably users of HGH, because they're all super built, like steroids and stuff like that. But they were just chilling out by the pool. And then up on the left was a door, and to a side building, right? And Dr. Ralph says, "Oh, okay, we got to go in here, right?" So we open the door, right, and walk in, and the first thing I notice is there wasn't a stick of furniture in the room. Now my spidey senses are totally sticking up. I'm like, what the heck is this? This is very strange. You have, I'm analyzing everything that's, going down, right? And so there's not a stick of furniture on the ground. And in one part of the room, I saw plastic. And I said to myself, just as I said, I'm getting out of here, Just as I said that, this guy walks in, and he was like 6'7", 6'7" guy, right? He walks in, and he has a pistol in his hand, and he raises the pistol, and he points it at Dr. Ralph's head, and he says, "Dr. Ralph," and he was an Australian guy, and in Australian, "Dr. Ralph, where's my money? Where's my money? I want my fucking money. Give me, you're gonna give me my money. You're gonna pay me. You owe me 800,000 baht." And Dr. Ralph was, didn't panic or anything like that, but he's like, "Yeah, no, I've got your money. I'm just in the process of transferring it to you," and stuff like that, And so, this is not the first time I've been in a room with guns pulled, but it was one of the ones that I definitely always remember, because at that moment when he was pointing that gun at Dr. Ralph's head. And this guy, like, he looked like, I mean, he was 6'7". I saw it on the news because that came later. But, I thought to myself, if he, he's going to have to shoot me too. If he shoots Dr. Ralph, there's no way I'm making it out of here. I mean, he's got his henchman by the pool. He's got a pistol in his hand. Dr. Ralph, and so what I did was, at that moment, when I'm looking at him pointing a pistol at Dr. Ralph's head, I said to myself, I'm going to turn invisible. I literally did that. I tried to channel some superpower powers or whatever and turn myself invisible. And while I was doing that thing in my head, I was saying, I'm invisible, and I'm backing up, and I'm just walking slowly, backing up towards the door. And as soon as I get close enough to the door, man, I just jet out of there, right? I just fucking do the jet, go down the path, and as I get down to almost the end of the path, Dr. Ralph comes out. Gobby, run, Gobby, run. And he runs, whatever, he catches up, right? And then we all get into the minivan, which had been running and the air conditioning on. So I'm sure he wanted to keep his children air conditioned and his wife air conditioned, but I think maybe that's one of the reasons why he kept that engine running. But anyway, so he turns out, he's driving away. He turns back on the Engelberg CD and playing it and stuff like that. And he just starts to talk and like nothing happened. We're gonna do this, that. We'll go to the beach, play some backgammon or whatever, something like that. And I'm in shock. I'm like, I just felt like I almost lost my life, right? And so I don't say anything while we're still in the car, and then because he's just running in his mouth a mile a minute, and we get to our destination. We get out, and we go to the restaurant, sit down, and we sit down opposite each other, right? And some other guys come over, sit down, and it was like this moment of silence. And I looked at Dr. Ralph. I looked him in his eyes, and I said, Dr. Ralph, don't you ever introduce me to any more of your friends. And everybody starts cracking up, laughing. It was funny. But that's not the end of the story, because 3 or 4 months later, in the news, Australian serial killer arrested by Interpol. It was that guy who was pointing a gun at Dr. Ralph said had been arrested for killing 16 people. Or he killed 16 people through his business operations or whatever. And there he was, arrested. This guy had, eliminated 16 people. And I was in the room with him, with Dr. Ralph, while he was pointing a gun at Dr. Ralph. And so for sure, if he pulled the trigger on Dr. Ralph, he would have pulled it on me. And I think the only reason he didn't do it was because he believed Dr. Ralph when Dr. Ralph told him that he was going to get him the money. If he didn't owe him any money or owed him a small amount of money, it would have been game over. That's what I think, at least. Anyway, that's the end of that story. I saw that guy in the news. Eliminated 16 people. Oh my God. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so here we are at our favorite Vista Point. We're looking out at this beautiful rice field. Harvest is in November, and you can actually see the mountains behind the clouds. I'll zoom in for a second, all right? Because it looks like Mount Fuji to me. I've been in Japan a couple of times, like 3 or 4 times. But anyway, it doesn't really look like Mount Fuji, but I like it. The mountain's peeking up. Hey, good morning, Scott74. Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well. Man, I just told an epic story. So if you didn't hear it, I hope you play it back, because you'll laugh and kind of be surprised. But basically, I was telling him about a life and death experience that I had. Okay, cool. A life and death experience I had in dealing with somebody at one time. Not because of me, just because I just happened to be there, Anyway, that's facing due west, and as I said, if we walk due west, we'll run into Laos, and then Vietnam, and then the Pacific Ocean. Move up a little further, go up to see if the star of our show is out today, and no, so it's still overcast. So that's facing due east. And if you keep walking east this way, you'll run into the Golden Triangle, which will get you to Myanmar, which was formerly named Burma. And if you keep walking this way as the crow flies, you'll end up in the ocean. Anyway, so that's the geography of where I'm at now. And Scott, I also said something before. If you want to check it out, check out some other things like I was telling another story about my father. My father was like a sort of a famous writer. His name was L.J. Davis, and initial L, initial J, Davis, and you can look it up on you can look him up on Wikipedia and stuff like that. So, because the story that I was telling, and it's not told on the Wikipedia page. This is when he was in the hospital. He was talking about advanced civilizations before humans, and this was back in like 96 or 97 or something, right around there. And I was like, wow, how did he come up with that? I always started about it, rethinking about what he was saying when I watched Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock and stuff like that. And that's when I started getting into the advanced civilization theory and how it totally makes sense. Arun suwat ya sabadi lupao. Jafontok ikmai. Okay. I got bodysuit. So, but in my father's words, he was saying that Arun suwat kunlung kunpa. Okom lang kap. Arun suwat. I got bodysuit. So, when he was laying in his bed, he was like heavily medicated. Fantastic! Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did a video this morning that the similarities between Trump and Grover Cleveland, because and I mentioned you when I mentioned this, not in the video, but this video. I said, Scott said before, you probably see this already. Have you ever seen the similarities between JFK and Lincoln? Like, there's a short video out there that shows all the coincidences between President Lincoln and President JFK. It is absolutely ridiculous. And if you don't think that we live in a simulation, you might. This might be evidence of a simulation. Check it out. I highly suggest it. If you haven't seen it, you will not regret watching it. It's a short on YouTube. The similarities between JFK and Abraham Lincoln. So after I saw that, I said, well, shit, maybe I can make my own video of something. So I did, I looked up the similarities between Donald Trump and other presidents and came up with the similarities between Donald Trump and Grover Cleveland. So that's my little short. And I hope you watch it and hope you like it. If you don't like it and you see something like I messed up with the video editing, please drop me a comment or in the chat, tell me, hey man, you messed that up a little bit or whatever. I'm not, I'm not upset if somebody criticizes or critiques something that I did, because, I have a pretty good bullshit meter. If somebody's trolling me, I know. And if somebody's genuinely telling me something that I need to improve on, I appreciate that, because, it's an honest, peer review, so to speak, or whatever. Which leads me to another topic. All right, so I've been living in Thailand for over 20 years, and I went back to the United States, right? I went back because, like I said in previous, I had to sort out my work credits and whatever, make sure all my I's were dotted, T's crossed. So, when it comes time for me to get to retirement age, right? And so there was a couple of things that I noticed when I got back to the United States, like apparently, because I left in the mid-90s, things had changed. Like one thing I noticed right off the bat was that I would like say nice things to people and they would just shrug it off, right? And I'm like noticing, this change, right? And like, then I watch a couple of people that I knew having a conversation, and then I'd watch other people's conversation, listen to other people's conversations, because I hadn't been back in so long. I'm trying to pick up the things. And I realized at that moment was that these people in the Northeast, right, they only listen to somebody when somebody's being critical, saying something like, critical of them, or like being like a gadfly or something like that. And I don't mean like critique like I'm asking, I would love somebody to critique my videos and stuff like that and let me know. I mean like something like saying something really derogatory. It's the only time people like a statement would start with something like "you're wrong" or something like that, like, and it's the only time people would like converse. But if you walked up to them and said, "Hey man, how you doing today? Oh, that's a fantastic jacket," the person's just gonna walk away from you. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But then I noticed another difference, and this one cracks me up, man. Still cracks me up. So like I'd been away, like I said, for over 20 years. I came back and I started doing some work in restaurants. I'm a cook. I can cook, I should say. And one of the jobs I took was a cook, right? And yeah, the neighborhood was, sort of a lower income neighborhood or something like that. But I've always been in lower income neighborhoods. Like, I know the lingo and stuff like that. That's what I mean. Like the lingo, like, is like, I'm from, I was born, like a mile away from where I was working, So anyway, I felt like I knew, what was up and everything like that. Arun, so what? Anyway, so I'm working, right? And I have a conversation with a guy. It was like sort of a casual conversation. He's a younger guy. And the end of the conversation, he says to me, "All right, bro, be safe." And I'm like, "What'd you just say to me?" I didn't say that, but I was like, I must have given a look. He said, "No, be safe." And I'm like, "Be safe? What do you mean be safe? Don't tell me to be safe. You be safe." What is that? Some sort of, I was like, to me, it was like somebody telling me to be safe. I'm born from this area, I'm automatically on point every time I'm walking down the street. I notice every little thing that I can notice, where everybody's walking, who's walking where, what's happening, cars, this, and somebody telling me to be safe was like, I was like, man, this guy's got a lot of nerve telling me to be safe, But then, like, and because it really, I felt like I was being, challenged in a way. I didn't let him know that, and I didn't say anything or whatever, but that's one of my inner thoughts. Anyway, so as more time progresses, I kept hearing this, people telling each other, "Hey, man, be safe, be safe." So apparently that's like a thing. But to me, it was like, because like in the early 90s, you tell somebody to be safe, that's kind of like a threat, right? I don't know. I don't know how to interpret it. Wait, tell somebody to be safe. You're telling me to be safe? Man, you be safe. What do I got to be safe from? You? That's how I interpreted it. But now apparently, if you go, everybody's going to say, everybody, a lot of people, well, not everybody, but like, a lot of people, that's one of the things when their parting salutations is, "Hey, be safe." I still never say that to anybody, because I mean, like, what does that mean? Be safe, like, gotta be safe. Isn't that like an automatic thing? Like, don't forget to breathe while you're walking. I don't know. So, just some of my thoughts about going back to the United States and experiences and stuff like that. Experiences here in Thailand and stuff, and. So yeah, I have a lot of stories, man. I got some stories. I don't even know if well, I'll tell them. I don't see why I can't tell them. I mean, Dave Chappelle tells these jokes, and it's not really a joke like Dave Chappelle. But well, you know what? I'm gonna save. We're almost done with this walk. I'm gonna save that for another time. We went over a lot of material today about the simulation, about fighting and competitiveness. And one of the greatest attributes a fighter can have is to be totally in control of their emotions, like after the fight or before the fight, and act like a gentleman. And I mentioned Anthony Rumble Johnson as somebody that I really looked up to as a competitor and a gentleman and stuff like that. And unfortunately, when he passed in 2022, I really I got choked up. For me, like, a better guy couldn't have, been so unlucky, But anyway, there's, of course, millions of people out there who are wonderful people, and unfortunately, death is a part of life. But that leads to another topic, which I did see, is that this was like 2 weeks ago. I saw on the news, some scientific news, one of the scientific channels, not Scientific American or whatever, that the doctors have now discovered a state between life and death. So it's like sort of like Schrodinger's cat. I don't know if you know about that experiment, right? Where this Dr. Schrodinger like put a cat in a box, right? And half the time the cat would be eliminated by radioactive waves, and half the time nothing would happen to the cat. So Schrodinger's idea was that, is the cat dead or alive? Well, it was like, became like a metaphysical thing, And it's, you could look it up, Schrodinger's cat. He didn't have to choose a cat. He could have chose something else, and he didn't have to kill all those cats, but whatever. It was in the 50s. Anyway, so there was Schrodinger's cat, so between the state between life and death or whatever. But they finally were able to prove it, that there is a state between life and death. And it exists in some sort of like viral form, whatever. It's neither alive nor dead. And that's what they found out. Yeah. So you heard about Schrodinger's cats, yeah. He didn't have to use those cats. Come on, man. Anyway, so they found out there is a state of being that is between life and death, right? So I find that kind of interesting, But yeah, man, a lot of things to think about these days. We talked about simulation and how we think that, like, my explanation for the simulation is what I sort of kind of believe, is that like they're like we're like just players in a video game of some kind by some super intelligence, and basically I wanted to text or email my super user, the guy who's playing my character. I said, listen, man, you got to start playing this game a little bit better, because you're not cutting it against the other players. What a great excuse for mediocrity. But yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier. And what else? I'm trying to think of what else. There is some other stuff that I was thinking about, but it escapes me now. We have the monks now coming out, reminding everybody about humility of life. That's what they do every morning. Not just these ones, but like all monks come out. And they're basically, this is part of the Buddhist philosophy, is to, what do you call it? Be somebody lupa. So to like remind people of humility and humbleness and stuff like that. So anyway, so that's just about it. Anyway, we are Arun Sawat. We are getting towards the end of this walk. It's that red house that's up there. Just trying to think if there's something else that I wanted to talk about today. Is there anything you want to talk? Okay, well, Scott74 says there's a movie, I think it's called 21 Grams, with Sean Penn in it, and how the soul loses that amount of weight at the moment of death that can't be explained. I've heard about that too. I've heard about that also. Yeah, that's yeah, man. I haven't seen that, but I definitely heard about that. And that's something I got to look into a little bit more, because what I came to the accepted, I felt like I had got an acceptable answer, was that it was all the air and gases being let out from the body or something like that. That was back then, like when I guess 21 grams came out, and that was a while ago. So at that time, I believed that was the plausible explanation. Yeah, definitely, 100%. I mean, like one of the first guys to say this was Socrates, and he said, "I know that I know nothing." And he's supposed to be like, one of the smartest guys who ever lived. And the more and more we're finding out, everybody's realizing we don't know jack diddly. We don't. We know so little. It's incredible. I mean, but the rate of information that we are learning is pretty amazing. Like if you just in one lifetime went from somebody would go from riding in a horse buggy to people landing on the moon in their lifetime. If we really did land on the moon, because that's also up for debate. It's still up for people are still debating that, but. I always believed that we did land on the moon, but hey, man, I'm keeping my mind open. There's this latest video out, like Elon Musk is saying something about how did they make it to the moon without refueling? And from what I remember was they were using the gravitational force of the Earth to spin around and whatever, and that's how they got there. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we did for a species. We definitely did well. But we're definitely not the most dominant species on this planet, because bacteria, they're superior to us as far as survival goes, I think. But we also are, as humans, are the worst animal on the planet. And if this planet is alive, which it might be alive, it might be saying, man, I've got a bad human. And the Earth just starts cranking out earthquakes and hurricanes and stuff like that. So, it's like a dog trying to get rid of fleas. Anyway, this is just about the end of the road for me today, and I'm so happy and grateful and thankful for everybody who came in and shared in the chat and listened to some of the things that I went on about while I'm exercising and stuff like that. Is really grateful, beautiful, and wonderful. And thank you so much. Know that you are loved. Know that this sky up here, right now, is one of the greatest masterpieces that nature has to offer among millions of offerings. And know that no man on this planet has enough money or bars of gold or ingots of silver to pay for this sky. And this sky belongs to the Almighty, whoever it is, whatever power it is, physics, God, deities, or whatever, I don't know, higher power. And we, obviously it's very essential for living and stuff. So anyway, with that being said, I will say to all of you out there, have a very good morning, a good afternoon, and have a good night.